Today, in your fun facts that are not actually fun. I do a lot of gardening content on here, so most of you are probably familiar with the concept of victory gardens. Victory gardens were very popular in the 1940s, World War I and World War II both. They talked about the concept of victory gardens to combat rationing. They were rationing because they needed to send food overseas for the troops, but what is not often talked about is another reason they were rationing. And that is because most of the farms that provided a lot of the fresh fruits and vegetables, a lot of other produce and items that people were eating, were located on the West Coast, so California, Oregon, and Washington, a little West Coast belt. And who was it that was primarily farming these farms? Japanese people and people of Japanese descent. What happened during the 1940s? My history buffs already know the answer to this question. Japanese internment camps. It's when they rounded up people of Japanese descent, Japanese immigrants, and otherwise, and put them into camps because they were deemed by those in power to be a threat. Now, what happened after that? All of a sudden, we didn't have enough people to farm these farms, to provide food for the people of our country, and that's when victory gardens became incredibly popular and incredibly patriotic. The best thing you could do for your country was to have a victory garden. The best thing that you could do to be a patriot, to be an American patriot, is to have a victory garden, and it is because we put all of the people who were farming our farms and growing our food into camps. If only there was something we could learn from in all this. Some kind of takeaway. But, you want to know my favorite part? My favorite part is that the victory gardens that did the best, that were the most productive, that grew the most food and fed the most people, guess where many of those were located? In Japanese internment camps. Because those same people that had been farming our food and growing crops grew victory gardens in internment camps, and they did the best and fed so many people from them. This is an example of why we need to learn history and remember it, and why the people that are recording our history are valuable people. Because when we do not know history, we can't learn from it. That's why gardening is so valuable. It encourages you to think about food systems. It encourages you to ask questions about where our food comes from and what the historical context is for why our food systems are the way that they are and what happened to make them that way. And if you ask enough questions about our food systems and how they were created and how they came to be, pretty soon you start discovering some pretty interesting stuff that you may not have learned about in school, that you may not have learned about in a traditional curriculum, you may not have learned about on the internet. This is a vast oversimplification of a very complex issue and a very complex conversation about that time in history and about the historical context of it and about how it impacted our food systems. But just the most superficial level of it draws startling parallels to where we are now. And I think more people should know about that.